All right, hello Star Wars players. Can you hear me? Double checking. Someone in chat could confirm that you can hear me talk. And Chris, if you want to say something too.
I can hear you talk.
Okay, you can hear me talk. I hear the good-looking Chris. It's very unclear which of this it is. Oh, CK also. Okay, there's the Joker King. There we
I
go.
was
He
gonna say
has he
that's
has
the
that name
Joker
for a
King.
reason. It's not an accident. All right, folks. Welcome to a special episode of Holotheatre. As you may have seen, we are previewing all of Set 21 tonight. We have a very daunting task, but the man above me here, our design advocate, Chris Kelly, is equal to that task. Just a few quick announcements before we get going here. First, we want to congratulate Emil Wallen for winning the Naboo Regional last weekend in the UK. He played Old Allies and Agents of the Black Sun, and played his way through a solid field of Euros and took it down. So my prediction on my last episode of Holotheatre against Matt and Thornton was correct. He did. It was a hit, as they say, that a world champion would win that event. So that was cool to see. Congratulations, Emil. Also, upcoming events. This weekend, Alderaan Regionals will be held in San Francisco, California. I will be in attendance, along with many luminaries of the Star Wars community, Joe Olson, Batmouse, amongst others. So if you're anywhere near there and you didn't already plan to come out, I would recommend you do so. And there are a few online events I want to touch on. The June OCS has begun, much to Tom Struther's delight. So if you are playing in the OCS, start getting your games in. Rock and roll. I know last month there was there was a little bit of like, oh wow, there's not a lot of people playing games toward the beginning of the month, and then everybody jammed them in at the end. So the earlier the better, in my opinion. Dylan may have already gotten his out of the way. We also have the Return of the Jedi anniversary event, the themed event that Jared Napolitano put together. So that's really cool. That's going on still, I believe. And so check out the requirements for that and get in some games of Return of the Jedi, special metagame, if you will. And then last but certainly not least, June 17th, next Saturday, will be the Grievous's Gambit themed deck box series tournament on Jump. I will be organizing that tournament. You can find the details on that on the forums. It will start at 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern, and noon in Greenwich. So that's the European time for those of you. Nice. Get up, have a brunch, and then play some Star Wars cards. With all those things out of the way, let's get to the main event. You're all here to see some new Star Wars cards and listen to the other Chris, not myself. So I asked one of our newest designers, Taco Bill, to pick which side would be going first today, and he picked the light side of the Force. So we are going to start. What's that?
That side's going first.
Light side's going first. It's like pseudo Star Wars. So our first set of spoilers for the light side of the Force is the clone objective and some various cards that go with it. We're not gonna read all the cards, but I will try to keep them on the screen for a good amount of time so people can screenshot them if they want. Chris, can you kind of walk us through where this is at?
Yeah. So I think Dan's plan is to have the pod that actually was the heart and soul of this theme on. So I don't want to steal too much of their thunder. But there were a lot of contributors. Been two of our own advocates, Adam and Greg. We're heavy in this, and Wayne and some others were as well. So I don't want to step too much on their toes. Basically, I think I can say with anecdotal certainty that clones were by far the most requested theme. Anyone who I've talked to, they'd always say, "Hey, Chris, we want more clones." Hopefully, we're giving them to you now. Nice little theme. It's kind of modular, which I love in the design because you can go different ways. If one theme strong, you can make a helper for the other theme without having to tear the whole system down. So I like it from that end. I just love the idea that it feels very warlike, that you are hunting down Grievous just like the Republic Army was. Trying to get him. When you capture him, you get bonuses, and when he's out in the battlefield, you got to go after him. So I love that theme.
Nice. We do have a little bit of a special spoiler for the clone's objective. The cards are on the screen right now, but we are about to reveal the art for the backside of the objective. The front side Christian spoiled earlier, and we have the backside as well for you. So Christian obviously and his graphics team put in a ton of work on this set, as they always do, and everything looks amazing. So let's take a look at that. So there you go. We have the hunt for the droid general, which has been on the forums for a little bit with some clone troopers. And then the cowardly General Grievous on the back trying to escape.
What a good picture. What a good picture.
Yeah, really neat. I won't belabor this one too much. We have a couple more slides of the clone cards, but like you said, we want to make sure that the team that spoiled them is able to talk about them in more depth. So real quick, we have here some of the sights, the diamond sights that go along with this objective. It's kind of cool to see some. I've always liked the idea of diamond sights. Oh, I thought I muted that. Apparently my cough was not muted, so there you go. A little thematic Grievous coughing. Nice work, Joker King. Sorry about that to everybody's ears. Anyway, so like I said, I've always liked diamond sights. It's kind of a neat concept that, you know, in the galaxy, there's a lot of places that are pretty similar to each other. So even in war, you have these kind of common things that the Republic would build on a given planet. They'd always have a clone command center, for instance, and they'd always have a way to get supplies to their troops. So here's some clone diamond sights, and these probably get played with both types of the objective, correct?
And that's adds to the modular nature of it, that you don't have to keep redesigning specific sites, but also it allows us to, in the future, make more than just the systems that are already out. I really love that it's future-proofing itself.
Yeah, agreed. So let's get on to. You keep saying it's modular. Let's look at a couple modules. So there are two battles that we're kind of portraying in this space. We have the Battle of Geonosis on the left and the Battle of Christophsis on the right. Do you have any thoughts on kind of the in-world significance of these battles?
I'm partial to Geonosis. I don't want to take a hit for this, but I'm not a huge Clone Wars fan. So obviously the movie resonates a little bit more with me, but I love what they've done with it. I love the fact that they kind of captured the material. And I know they dove pretty deep into the rich resources that the cartoons do allow for. So I'm really happy with what they did. They did an incredible job.
Nice. And then it's true that one of these is a bit more ground focused and one is a bit more space focused. Is that right?
I would agree with that.
Nice.
This branding, can you guys see me? Is this branding?
We cannot see. It's just the text on the screen right now. But he is drinking out of his PC sponsored water bottle, so everybody should applaud him for that. We do have another art spoiler at this point. We have the Battle of Christophsis that is on that panel. We have a clone trooper on Christophsis, and you can kind of see how that art turned out. Looks really cool. Very, very nice stuff from the graphics team, as always.
That would look good in foil. Jared can hook us up with like a foil of that for some event.
Yeah, I could see that.
So good in foil.
Yeah, that would be neat. And then obviously, since one is more ground-based and one is more space-based, we needed a little more Republic space. That's been an area that since the reset has been a bit lacking. So we have this little space package here with a couple of Venator class cruisers. Anything stand out to you here that you wanna touch on?
I kind of think Admiral Yularen's pretty cool. But obviously, we all know Yularen from the ISB days, but I love that he's kind of in his earlier days when he was on the good side. But I think they captured his flavor pretty well. All I can think of when I see this slide is Robbie thinking, "Oh, finally, WAP space." And WAP's getting some space cards, so
Well, there
that's
we
kind of what I
go.
think. But
That's exciting. I agree. I like that. It also we haven't had a clone pilot since the reset either, but I remember those being actually pretty neat in the in Legacy too. I don't know how close this one is. I didn't go back and look, but it's cool to
yeah,
have some.
these were like oddball. There were some unique clone pilots, but as far as this generic clone pilot, yeah, it's kind of like a nice nostalgia.
For sure, for sure. I like that it still has an armor value, even though it's never going to be on the ground. Like it's meant to be in a ship. And once again, we have some neat art to go with these clone cards. We have the Resolute itself and Admiral Yularen. That Admiral Yularen turned out really well. I love the way that looks.
Even the Resolute too, like just it just stands out with that red.
Absolutely, yeah. Those are both very cool full slips, and nice to not have to see slip some of these. And the underlying card, I'm going to let them touch a little bit more on this next week, but the underlying card for Admiral Yularen does have some relevance and significance, so I'm going to leave that there.
Let me take a shout out to the proofing team. Obviously, I always say it's probably the least sexy, least glamorous position, but so important. So they picked so many of these underlying cards, and they did a great job. I'm sure Joker King's in there. He can give some rationale for it, and certainly with Yularen, the pod can. All of the underlying cards were thought out pretty well, and discussed among. So a lot of thought went into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I contributed a couple myself this time around. I saw the thread and jumped in there with some fun suggestions, and I really enjoyed that process of just thinking through like what are some cool opportunities we have to make to put these cards over cards that make sense within their theming and or kind of make either a joke or some sort of clever reference. So that was neat. Yeah, Joker King in chat says that Greg Gurgle was the one to come up with the Yularen underlying card, and I will let him explain the significance on next week's episode with Dan. So, moving on from the Clone Wars, this is what many would call a grooving a fastball to Chris Kelly here. We're moving into one of his favorite decks. He is the chosen one. What do we have going on here, Chris?
This one, I think the main card was already spoiled, so just the two supplemental cards. This was both a fun and a frustrating one to tackle from design. This had been hanging around in design for some time, and for I would say 6/7 of its lifespan, was actually dueling. Not dueling like Maul Strikes or Vader's Obsession, but dueling to cause a small ping with I Feel the Conflict. And the more conflict cards you had stacked, the more power you got. Ultimately, we did it because we couldn't find the right balance between single ping being worth your entire deck being built around versus you give it a benefit and it snowballed where if the benefit was too good, you just kept winning battles. So cut it, and now it's kind of elegant and beautiful in my mind, where it just focuses on what Hiko should focus on, from a game point, maybe not necessarily from a theme point. And that's just winning battles. I like it because it encourages you to play your own battlegrounds, and mains don't normally play like that. Normally, you want to limit the battlegrounds on table. Here, it encourages you to play the battleground, and if you occupy your own battleground, and still get that force choke aspect that mains needs, a bonus. Um, the other thematic thing that I was a little disappointed on 11th hour that had to change was originally it was you could lose 2 force to prevent an attack Luke's lightsaber. I'm sorry, that's what it got changed to. Originally was you could steal it back, which was so thematic from the movie. Luke is always without his lightsaber and then always getting it back. But just due to rules wise with Weapon of a Sith and how it interacted, we had to change left rather than letting you steal it back.
Gotcha. Okay, so it used to be there that you could use the 2 force to take it back instead of just stopping the
Yeah,
attempt.
because Luke's always giving his lightsaber to other people and then just taking it back. And
True.
with Jedis Fury, that really is just to make up for the fact that you can't play Padme, to always cancel Vader's text. And I
Can't play
love
what?
that.
You broke up there a little bit.
Can't play. I'm sorry. In Hitgo, you can't play Padme.
Gotcha. Padme. Sure.
The lost function makes up for that a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you would say generally that this started out as kind of a Hitco variant and turned into some general Hitco helpers.
Yeah,
This
for
is not
sure.
like
For
a
sure.
new version of Hitco, is what you're saying, probably.
Yeah, I can still see value in not using the event. Just going old school docking bay to get your activation out. But I think we really like where this landed because of the thematics. The images are going to be great. Anakin's Destiny is kind of like a blaster deflection for lightning in the choke. So that might end up in some other decks. It's kind of our goal is to cut into that a tiny little bit. Jedi's Fury, the used portion, it can be used when you are hit. So if they hit Luke, Luke gets furious. So
Sure.
that's kind of neat how that all interplays.
I do think it's pretty interesting. We don't often see a starting effect that can be used for its other function in other decks. Like usually your starting effect is just a slot in your deck, whether it's the classic medical frigate or prepared defenses or things like that. Sometimes you see like a Twi'lek advisor as just an effect puller, but obviously there's better versions of that. We do have one piece of art here for Jedi's Fury. You can see that we got a cool Luke art going on in this image. This is really neat.
The background of that is the song that plays when getting Vader is actually called the Jedi's Fury.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I did not know that about the Return of the Jedi soundtrack there. Nice tip. Okay, so moving on from Hitco, we have another deck that's beloved by some, but sometimes maligned, and that would be the Hyperdrive Generator's Gone. So we got some Hyperdrive helpers here.
Are you doing the permanents or the win lose?
Yes, we have the permanents up. We have the specifically the new Anakin Skywalker, which is pretty neat, and his friends.
So this kind of dovetail into the Hitco thing, where I think it was MHT who a while ago, where it would be cool if we had some currency where you're stacking these cards and then you use them to do other things. So I just talked about that in Hitco, how you stack cards and use them. So credits will be fine, and that kind of works a little better because you're literally spending credits to do things, including getting Anakin from Watto. Uh, it's kind of just a nice little system. This was something we worked pretty hard on. It came through different iterations. I know everyone playtesting can probably speak to how many tweaks there were to it. Ultimately, we landed on what I think is a semi-efficient system without being a complete pull chain. Gun's lightsaber obviously is just a strict upgrade. Cover spies, credits will define. So let's just not mess around. Let's not rely on the did you get your canceller to my canceller, and then just wipe out the undercover because it's devastating to the.
Yeah, that's great. Talon Jade in chat would like to relay that he's enjoying that we're bringing new flavors to older decks, and I agree with that point wholeheartedly. So it's cool to see these sort of cards again. So then we have a pair of kind of interrupts that kind of go together here. And either way you win, and eventually you'll lose. Some fun gambling themed cards that are just further hyperdrive helpers. That's a tongue twister.
so we needed a way for Qui-Gon to be able to stand up to Lord Vader or a Maul with double saber, or even Veers early on. We knew we wanted to do something with canceling text and stopping lightsaber swing. That's where either way you win comes. Originally, that was an effect, but you can't start 15 effects in the. So we kind of came up with that cool system where you can pull a remote planet, and if you get a guy, you can get that interrupt to kind of slow them down at the junkyard. And one other
Nice.
thing I want to mention I forgot about Anakin is something I love thematically is every time you spend the credit, it does something different with someone who is so influential in his life. At a Power Destiny, at a Battle Destiny, at a Nutrition Destiny. So if he's with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, or Shmi, it does something a little different. All three of them are so instrumental. What Anakin will be doing later on at that time, later on in the movie, and then just in the galaxy in the future. So I kind of love the way that card turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Shmi doesn't currently see a lot of play, but maybe this will cause people to rethink that if she's adding a Destiny to attrition. And then, last but not least, for our light side friends, we have some kind of generic miscellaneous cards, and some of these have already been spoiled. But we have the new shield, and then we have a new Mind What You Have Learned helper, which I'm sure will be universally beloved by the community. And then a grabber and some other things. You want to chat about these a little bit?
The shield only carry their weapons was kind of a late development in a way to basically handle drawing nines. Arcside's just so good if they have a 7 on top of devastating you with a choke, a trample, or a force lightning. Side doesn't really have that ability. Big skill to do, so we didn't want to kill it. But the one thing is drawing a 9 for Battle Destiny, especially in space, is devastating. It takes out 2 guys at least. They have Rey and the ship. It's clearing everything. So we wanted to stop the 9s without killing the whole idea of tracking a 7 and doing good things with it. That's where the shield comes from. Mind What You Have Learned, you hit it on the head. I'm sure everyone's going to love it. I know our community is very supportive of even of themes that they personally don't like. They just want to see have fun. Then Scanner Text started out a little weaker. We had a few different versions of cards in this set. Top Rops. Just as I said, drawing a 9 for Battle Destiny is devastating, especially in space. Rops draws 9s all the time. Battle Destiny. So it's a small answer for Rops. That text used to be on an interrupt from modifying Total Battle Destiny. But we ported it over to these effects, which are basically safety valves. You need a site, you can put it on that site. Your drains are safe. Battle Destinies, you can be overwhelmed on that. And also it stops code clearance. So it's kind of just a nice catch-all. Probably a certain 60-second card in every deck. So that's kind of what we're aiming for.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I hadn't thought of kind of a sideways bump against the kind of Thrawn space package where you're just throwing 9 forfeit guys on your ships a lot. So that is nice.
And it's cool. It's not unique. So you can put 2. You can put 1 at the system, so Thrawn can't do that at the system, and you can put 1 on the ground so that when Veers is in his walker, they're not just loaded with.
Do you think there are decks that are going to want to play multiples of these?
In my head, all of my decks have 3 of them.
All right, that's pretty strong.
But like you won't let me play 66 card decks. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. But in my head, it seems good just to spread them out, especially against Rops. You put 1 at every route to your location, all finding their objectives. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, before we move on to the darker side of the Force, do you have any general thoughts about how the light side package came out as a whole?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. There's a little something for everyone, I think. We got the clones, we have the mains. Hyperdrive has always been looking for a helper, and then just some good utility cards. The shield against 9s, the grabber allows the shuffle. So things like that to help in some of the more prevalent dark side decks. Tops has been tops for so long, and always close to making a counter. We did Unita. So now we'll see how this one does, and just make sure you have at least one site or system where not adding to the Destiny. not subtracting from.
Sure, definitely makes sense. All right, let's move right along. We're going to start the dark side cards off with a set that we actually have seen on this show before, and that will be the Vader cards. Did any of these have any edits or updates since our last conversation about them?
Probably. It's so hard to keep track of which version is which. Um, I know that proofing did wonders to have it so that the chasm walkway can't be converted. That was one of the bad things of the deck, where if you played your chasm walkway and made your deck based around it, Jedis converts it. So they worked wonders to make that work. But other than that, I'm pretty sure that the shell of it is the same. Functions the same. The title's still my favorite title of any V card ever. Here's Malediction.
Yeah, no, that card is rad. Greg would like you to see if you can adjust your audio by adjusting your phone, but I don't know if you're actually on your phone audio wise or not.
Not on my phone. Should I speak louder or softer?
It's not a loud or soft. It's just that you're still doing the little cut in and out, but
Oh, sorry.
That might be inevitable. But we'll do our best to get that fixed. Let's move on to much like mine, which you've learned, another universally loved deck in the Star Wars community, the Imperial Security Bureau. We got some ISB Operations cards here. I know some of these have been spoiled already, and there was some discussion about them even today in Slack.
Most, I think, if not all, were spoiled. Again, like you said, I love that people think because they don't personally like it, they're very accepting, tolerant. The fact that other people might have fun that way. Dark Collaboration, I just love because it's when all the ISB leaders are together. Basil doesn't count because he just fumbles everything. So I love the theme. And Tarl's cool. Just our bonus when he's deployed. I think it was Joe Olson who mentioned it would be cooler if he didn't be a border walker. So we did change that.
Nice. Yeah, I've always appreciated how receptive to feedback the design team is. So that's good that players can kind of spot cool things like that or interactions that might be a little problematic and fix those.
That's kind of why we like to do spoilers early. We get everyone's feedback and then
yeah, hopefully maybe some will come out of this episode as well. I do wonder. I want to get your opinion here. We have yet another barrier canceller here. Between the barrier cancelers that we have and the new grabbers that make them lost, are we at all overcorrecting on the barriers?
I think the only card that really is barrier hate would be the grabbers. But in a way, the grabbers aren't barrier hate that strongly because they don't cancel barrier. They don't stop barrier. They just re-lost it. Our collaboration, the original canceled barrier. It seemed odd to not include a barrier canceller on the virtual version. It kind of should be ported over. The grabbers I kind of encourage you to not grab barrier. A normal grab for a lot of ways. They allow it to exist. They just change.
You cut out a little bit there after exist. They allow it to exist.
Oh, they just change the cost of it.
Sure. Yep, that's very fair. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if barrier is still. I assume it will still be a ubiquitous card in people's decks, because sometimes they don't have the cancelers, sometimes they don't have the lost maker, I guess we call them. But yeah, that's a fair point. That keeping the grabbers kind of anti-encourage it, and maybe you don't even play a barrier canceller for just that reason. Like people have played interrupts in the past, like the Biff Shuffle combo, as only a canceller. Maybe you don't need that if you have a tentacle or whatever grappling hook in your deck.
Because it's not going to keep up.
We did not get any of that. I don't know.
Would it be better if I tried my phone?
You could try, sure. We'll do it live here. We'll take a little pause. Have this. We'll bring us back on the screen here while Chris tries to get his phone going for the audio portion of this. He will hopefully rejoin us here in a second. How's everybody doing out there in Star Wars land? I also don't know why the Twitch chat box is not working, but that's fine.
Is that better?
Ooh, we have better audio. Yes,
All right.
I don't have your video, but that's probably all right because we're not doing much on video anyway. So let's do the better audio.
Perfect. All right.
All right,
Sorry about that, guys.
all good. Let's keep rocking and rolling. So we got the Vader out of the way. We got the ISB. Now we move on to some speeder bikes, which I think unironically are more of a fan favorite than some of these other decks where, people like the concept of speeder bikes, and I remember fondly in the Andorra Death Star 2 era being able to put those in decks, and it's a little tougher, but maybe this will get them going again.
Yeah, and this is really great work by Ryan Jellison, getting all the pieces to fit together. Early on, it was kind of a combo effect that just had so much text on it, and he was great about paring it down to get into the heart of what it needed to be. So this is, I think, it's probably more than just a fun concept. I think there's some promise to it. Anytime you have reacting vehicles, and we all know the biker scouts are so good, they make it into decks even without bikes.
Sure. Do you see this being a possibility in a variety of decks, or do you have like one or two specific ones that you're looking at for this?
I think IE is probably where it's going to be best. You can retrieve your biker scouts. I think IE is probably best.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to say Andor Operations, but I'll take IE. I do have a slight bone to pick with you now that you've virtualized the card Accelerate into a playable card. It used to be that people, when they wrote Accelerate on their deck lists, you could tell that it was clearly, we must accelerate our plans, and you'd be like, oh, silly, you wrote the wrong card, fix it. But now it might be either one, so now we're going to have to do some more checking on those.
I apologize in advance.
Speaking of Imperial Entanglements, a deck that's been kind of down bad, I would say, for a while. It looks like we might have a little bit of a come up here. We got some neat Imperials for it.
I just posted a thing on the forums, or I guess Greg helped me because I don't understand computers, for deck boxes, and it made me go through all of the virtual objectives, and IE was in the very first reset set, and it's been a constant, and then it kind of went away. This hopefully brings it back a little bit. We understand it's not going to be top tier like it once was. I think probably the main focus of it is going to be the new Tatooine Occupation, which kind of changes the flavor of the deck. There's so many occupation cancelers, so an occupation that can't be canceled seems pretty good.
Well, with that, I guess we should show the people that occupation. Right now, we just got a couple troopers up, but I like the trooper theme in general for IE. It's kind of gives it a little more uniqueness and variety than a classic Walker's deck where it's just going to be Veers and some AT-ATs that all say Blizzard in the name walking around on Tatooine. So with that, let's switch over to Tatooine Occupation, send a detachment down, and the Dewback.
And the Dewback's cool because on the prior screen, we're doing something we haven't done, and that's letting you play cards from outside your deck. So that one trooper, TD 4445, grabs a Dewback from outside your deck. It's kind of like an EPP, and I think a nice way to, without being overpowered, get some Dewbacks in the game without costing you a card slot. But then, as you can see up there, the occupation that can't be canceled as long as you're playing on theme, I think works really well. And then send attachment down being almost like a brave resistance for the deck is pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm really excited to try this theme out, and I agree with your point about bringing cards in from outside the deck. I think that obviously there were many people who in Legacy thought that went a little too far. I remember distinctly having a discussion with Brad Iyer at a tournament where he said, and that this was back in the days when your starting effect limited the number of cards you could place under it. It wasn't unlimited like today. So you could only have like 15 shields under there. And he told me one time, he walked up to me before a tournament and said, all right, under my starting effect, I got 3 shields, the Ace of Spades, and an Adrian Peterson rookie card. And that was obviously probably a little too far, but I think in measured doses with unique situations like this, especially when there's really great thematics involved, I am excited to try the dewbacks and the new IE. And then last but not least, here we got some sites to help out IE as well.
Yeah, I love all of these sites. Most Isley, for whatever reason, Decipher printed it with smugglers and thieves and put a picture of sand troopers. So we're kind of correcting that and letting it be a sand trooper helper. A little help against mains, which typically would be IE's worst matchup. So helping them out a little bit. And then the Jawa camp just reminds me of pure Imperial violence. I think these sites came out pretty well.
Yeah, I love
the
thematics as always.
The public's had good feedback. Everyone's kind of tired of 2-1 drain -1 sites. So these are sites you have to defend, and maybe the speeder bikes can help you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to react around is always fun, and the ATSTs can do that to some extent too if you need a little boost. I do have a question here. Is there a specific Hoth device that people might have in mind for the Tatooine Imperial landing site?
I'm not here to tell people how to live their lives, but deflector shield generator I think is probably the most poignant card. Boost, give some immunity to some stuff. Make landing claw not as good an option. Protect it against a little space cheese, especially if that's your only ship.
Nice, that makes a lot of sense. And after the episode, I'm sure I'm going to get a dozen DMs telling me, "Hey, dummy, there's only one dark side Hoth device."
No, electro rangefinder, man.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's what they're going for.
Like that.
Veer's just going to be shooting people from miles away. All right, let's move on to another one that was debuted here on the show, some Cantina Love. I think this one stayed pretty consistent with what was there last time. Is that correct?
Probably. Again, it's hard to remember what version is when, but I think it's the same. If anything did change, it's very likely just the aliens that are going to be forthcoming.
Nice. Looking forward to that. With that, moving on to a special request from Slack chat. It was mentioned that when I posted that we were going to be doing this episode, that they wanted some alien helpers or death, and I really am hoping they get the alien helpers rather than the death. So we got some cards with Hut in the title. What's going on here?
We actually had quite a few helpers for Court in the set. We kind of knew not all could come out at once, so we settled on these 3. Most important meta-wise, I think, is Tatooine decks cannot survive while Obi-Wan communing is a thing. You are encouraging them to go to their planet to get use pile pulls to then further clown stomp your little guys. So Hut influence protects your own sites from them just getting use pile pulls. So they can't go to Watto's Junkyard with Leia with blaster rifle and pull within their use pile, the blast proficiency to add to the destiny. They can't do things like that. It retains its most important text of preventing drains from being modified by projection or canceled. So that's almost like a free instant upgrade for that. And then the Pit of Carcoon lets you play the sail barge there for a little bit cheaper, which gets your force activation out. So that's kind of a nice little quick engine. And also you can reenact Boba Fett emerging from the Sarlacc there. But I think the real gem is Power of the Hut, basically replacing Wipe Them Out as your third effect in Court, giving you immediate access to stop Leia, Rebel Princess, giving you, the extra force so long as now Hut is on table, and just letting you pull some key cards. So it's almost an instant upgrade for Court like that.
Yeah, that looks really neat. I'm excited by that. Am I correct that was Power of the Hut one of the cards in the third anthology preview? I don't recall.
I believe it was in the Jabba's Palace sealed deck.
Well, I know it was in that, but I was wondering if there was a white border version, as always.
I don't
That's
think
probably a
so.
different Jabba card than I'm thinking of.
There, Jabba's influence was the white
Okay.
border.
Oh well. I'll
Did you want to
survive.
see? Like, if you told me before the show, before we spoiled it for crying out loud, we could have done that.
It's all right. I think this is the right card for it, and I agree that looks like a cool upgrade. I'm sure Kendall's out there very excited at the moment.
And you'll note also it does pull the barge, which deploys -2, so it's kind of a nice system if you're willing to spend your early force on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of internal synergy there, which is nice. And so that is it for our major themes. But we do have quite a few cards left. As I was talking to Chris about this episode, I noted that there were several slides of miscellanea, I would say. So let's jump right into those with another one of my favorite like villain characters, just a cool lady from primarily the Clone Wars cartoons, Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, she came out like a gem. It reminds me of Enhanced Jabba's Palace when Mara Jade finally came out. Just another great dark side utility character who fits in so many decks, and the immune to permanent weapons, so good. Some decent immunity, and she's also helped for Shadow Collective, which we kind of dinged a little bit. And her lightsabers. Look at her lightsabers.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. Do you have any concerns about between? I guess she's not quite immune to weapons, but the immune to permanent and the weapon destiny draws targeting her, even non-permanent weapons -1. Any concerns about her being somewhat tough to remove?
I don't think so because Destiny is so high nowadays. I don't think if you wanted to hit her, you could hit her. She can back herself up with Force Field, of course. Her immunity is good, but it's not unbreakable.
True. Joker King says she feels like somewhat of a mirror to Ahsoka, which I actually really like thematically. So that's pretty cool. And then what's going on with Corporal Drazen hanging out on the side here?
That was a player card, and he did a good job of explaining the reason for it. How it was a personal card of his, and how he liked how he did all of these different things in the movie. He liked him, shooting our droid friends, which I take umbrage with, but I think that player card came out pretty well, and how it does different things for different decks. Hopefully, it'll see some play in those various decks.
Nice. Yeah, that is really cool. Uploads Blasted Droid. I could not tell you what that card does, but I'll look it up.
It's like Sniper, but for troopers.
Oh, okay. That's pretty neat. And then we do have our Asajj Ventress image here, which turned out incredibly well. This is just such a cool looking piece of art. So just kind of drink that in, and you can kind of see I love that you can kind of see like the glow of her lightsabers reflecting off of her armor there at the bottom. Like, she's clearly just ready to take some people out. So I'm looking forward to putting her in decks, and hopefully getting Shadow Collective sleeved up again. I didn't play a lot with it, but it seemed pretty fun when I was playing it.
Yeah, it is fun. You get to shoot things. It's cool. Pew pew.
Love a good pew pew. All right, let's move on to our second set of cards here, a little more focused on space. We got a couple of dark side splashable ships, which are the solution to all problems, as Star Wars players know.
You stole my joke. But in all seriousness, light side has the most splashable space in Han Chewie and the Falcon. Dark side can't stand up to that in one card, and maybe it shouldn't. My opinion is Han Chewie and the Falcon should be better than most dark side ships. But we kind of struggled with where to land on this, and we went with a few different versions. Early on, it was Boba Fett and ship with Jango Fett as the pilot as well. And then we decided we'd just make First Light just a generic, good dark side ship. But it turned out in Shadow Collective, which can pull it. How does that stand? So we just went with First Light as a Shadow Collective ship. Its text is pretty cool because your gangsters at the sites add to total battle destiny there. And obviously everyone knows it's very easy to move from site to piloting the ship and vice versa. So you can move your guys around strategically. So we just like how that gives Shadow Collective new dimension. We saw a lot of decks in playtesting starting You Cannot Hide Forever, grabbing Gaul, which has amazing text, and then ditching it for inconsequential losses. And then you have your space set up. And then for Zuckuss and Forlom, text reads incredible. It's been playtesting pretty fairly. It's just a steady ship, pullable by double back. It gives you what you might need. We are very, very, very seriously considering and likely to make it add one pilot as opposed to two passengers, to kind of just give it a small bump to those willing to commit resources to it. But other than that, we're happy with how it came out.
Were there any non-Tom Struther players in playtesting who were concerned about giving up Forlom as a persona being too big a cost? I assume Tom will just never play this card.
I think quite the contrary. I think it's one of Tom's favorite cards. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he loves it. You can do cool things with it, like combo it with your own Sando. So players only get one battle destiny, but you can combo it so you can substitute one. So you're kind of controlling that battle. We knew it was a big cost with Forlom, and we kind of wanted it that way. But I think, especially if we change to be the pilot, it'll be a strong ship for some splashable space.
Nice. And then one other thing that, to give a little peek behind the curtain here, there was a lot of discussion about the First Light specifically, but also just the state of the meta in general. I know you mentioned people were using it with Gaul, which is famously Parsec 9. And there was some question or discussion surrounding the fact that one of the advantages that Lightside seems to have is that their ships just naturally have better hyperspeed, and so they can get places that these splashable ships cannot. Was there any kind of further discussion around that point that you might want to bring to light?
Sure. That discussion is actually still ongoing. There's discussion as to whether or not to make First Light hyperspeed 4 or 3. So, these are spoilers, obviously subject to change. We're always listening to feedback. We're always still discussing. We're always looking at playtest reports. So that discussion's still ongoing. It might end up at a 4.
Nice. Very cool. And then
what are your thoughts?
I have not been playing enough dark side space that has been affected by that. I've been primarily playing Invasion recently, which kind of stays at home and uses Teihao as its reach and doesn't have to actually go anywhere. So I haven't personally seen those effects, but from a conceptual perspective, it does make sense to me that that's something that the light side's just naturally better at. Their ships were more maneuverable. They had shields. They had, hyperdrives in their primary ships in the X-wings and stuff, while the TIE fighters didn't. And then the capital ships, even the blockade runners were obviously more maneuverable and could kind of outrun Star Destroyers a lot of times, unless certain circumstances were in place and they were surprised or chased, things like that.
Or tractor beamed.
Yes. And then we got a little hanger here, the Jakku Nima Marketplace. What's going on here?
Trying to help out map a little bit. We eroded Bow to only work at episode 7 sites. So this is an episode 7 site that kind of gives you some faux movement where you still get your bow pull and then you can move your guys into their battles.
That makes sense.
And I love the light side text is so thematic. Like the First Order's there, but this is the site where they attack when they see Finn and Rey. So if they're there, the First Order has to focus their resources on those two, getting them to get them after Skywalker. And if they're there, they can't move away. So I like that theme.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting in any matchup involving OA as well. where this gets placed, how this
Yep.
text plays out, things like that. So I like little chess themes like that. All right, and everybody's getting a good look at the art of the marketplace, which again turned out incredibly. Like that looks exactly like it. I don't know who the artist is. I can't quite read that, but they did an incredible job on it, and Christian and his team did a great job finding it. So kudos to them as well. Question in chat: is the marketplace pullable?
No, but it well, yes, by the landing site, by the 1.0 that you start. But otherwise, no. It's pullable within map, I should say, within that system.
Sure. So it's not something you could float just as like an anti-OA card necessarily.
Yeah, it's not something I would do, but we're way past floating zeros in my opinion as far as the meta. But if you're playing map, you would start the interrupt that lets you get the 1.0 on table, and then the 1.0 pulls it.
Nice. There you go. And last but not least, we have a smattering of dark side red cards here. So we got a couple.
So two of these are more or less mirrors. The Hyperwave scan is a mirror of Scanner Tech, and Tentacle is of Grappling Hook, although Grappling Hook canceling Imperial barriers obviously way more, or making it lost is more thematic than Tentacle doing anything with Rebel barrier. But the gems here, deactivated Hyperdrive is basically like a search and destroy with some hate for Han Chewie and the Falcon. A lot of decks struggle with what some people call space cheese. So if your opponent is playing those types of decks, you can get some ping damage in with deactivated Hyperdrive, which, by the way, has an incredible Decipher image. So I'm glad to see that in decks. Comm scan detection, Darkside's been waiting for a very long time. All purpose, no BS, undercover spy killer. Sorry, Jin. And then it also gets rid of a few other OA cards. OA's always been performing at the top of the meta. Even if it's not as prevalent, it's always been successful. So some cards that OA relies on gets a little hate. And then Starship Weapon hate. So we expect comm scan detection to make many decks. And then Shattered Hope. All the credit I could possibly ever give in the world to any man, I give to MHT on this one. He was early on suggested this. It's so simple, so good. We went through different iterations of it, and at the end of the day, his version's the best. During a battle, out of Battle Destiny, period.
Yeah, it's so simple, but also like obviously clearly powerful. Do you think that's something that's like one in every dark deck going forward, or?
It's so interesting. My first impression was it doesn't make a single deck. As a Destiny 3 that adds a Battle Destiny in a meta where so many cards limit Battle Destiny, or there's big Jedi that are fully immune. But I re-examined, our opinions and followed playtesting, and it's strong. I could see it being a 3 of in some decks. It's a great, interesting, simple card, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree with that. That a strong line of game text that is so simplistic that you could fit 2 more lines on here, and we haven't, which is great, because I know that's been one complaint that the players have had, is that there's a lot of text creep. And this is just very, very baseline, but obviously still will find a lot of homes.
Yeah, and MHT even said at one point internally, like, it's a card Decipher should have made. And if you didn't know about virtual cards and you saw that card, you would think Decipher made this card. It's so simple, and it should have come out in Premiere.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. It's funny, you think about Premiere, and there's not like a ton of Battle Destiny adding. I don't know if they even knew how good Battle Destiny was at that point. I mean, it's all like the combo effects, but that's all very specific. Like,
yeah, yep. It was all the cards to make sure you got all the rare ones.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to play this broken card, you should buy more packs.
Exactly.
But also, good luck putting your 3 power 4 ability Luke and your 3 power 3 ability Leia in a battle at a site so you can add 2 Destiny with them.
Yep.
Like,
and hope it doesn't get sensed.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Talk to me more about deactivated hyperdrive, because this one to me, on the one hand, obviously, quote unquote, killing the Falcon is like very impressive. Like taking away its immunity is a huge part of its appeal. But then on the other hand, do you think that and then just being able to recycle it if you're not playing against Hidden Base or Y4, is that enough to get it in people's decks?
Oh, great question. This card initially started out as an effect that had door in title. So you could keep looping it with Conduct Your Search. At some point, it was also an interrupt. In my mind, it basically would go in any deck that would need Search and Destroy to beat those decks. And it's 6 Destiny, so it's not that much of a hit if it's useless. And you can keep fishing it out if you pay 3/4 with your accelerates. So I think it will replace Search and Destroy with the side benefit of cutting into light side's most efficient space package.
So in some ways, it's kind of like a 2-card Imperial Artillery for a specific matchup. Or it's just
A great way of putting it. Yep,
consistent source of damage.
Absolutely. Yeah, a high Destiny card with very narrow damage source. Yes, it's a great way of putting it.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to get back on camera here, although you can't see Chris because he's on his phone, which I miss his face, but it was good to hear him a little better there at the end. Do you have any thoughts, general thoughts about Darkside? Anything that you were hoping could make the set, but maybe got pushed back, or people felt like wouldn't work, or general themes that you're like, oh, that would be neat to do in the future that came up during Set 21 development?
For sure. I think still has room to grow and explore. This is just the start. This is just the beginning. There was another large theme that Ventress was going to be more integral to, that ultimately, with the size of the set and the resources we have, we decided to delay. So look for that to come out, at some point. So we recognize Darkside's kind of behind, and we're hoping to rectify that. We think a lot of meta cards will hopefully achieve that. We'll see where we're at. All I know is, and mark my words, is the next set will be explosive. But I think the set puts a lot of excitement into players and creativity in deck building. It's not as linear as other sets have been. So I'm excited for this, and I'm excited for Worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see what people do with these. And I mean, you said the next set's going to be explosive. This one is 69 cards, which is pretty nice. And that's a lot of cards with a lot of behind the scenes work. I know this took a lot of time and a lot of effort. Just seeing the forums behind the scenes when these sets are going through the process is just truly impressive, because it's, you wake up in the morning and there's like 50 posts and you're like, wow, okay. And then you're like, okay, well, I don't read all the posts in the development forum, so I'll mark all those as read. And then an hour later you'll come back and there's 30 more posts. Like, there's so much discussion, so much thought put into these, so much care. And I think you and the rest of the team, and multiple teams, in fact, design, development, graphics, you all knocked this one out of the park. And I think people are going to...
I appreciate that. I know I've said so many teams, Gemp, the slicers, the playtesters, the proofers. I think someone should take note of Joker King's total post number before a set and after a set, because he's just so diligent and thorough, and it's amazing how quickly he and the proofing team are able to respond to all of our finicky, nitpicky changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the back and forth with the proofing and the rules team and trying to make things fit. And, is this one going to fit via... There was one card where, I think it was, maybe it was a Jedis Fury, where there were 3 instances of the on the card, and the proofing team had to figure out which of them was the least important, because they were, it was over by exactly 1 instance of the. And so there was all sorts there was back and forth on these 3 these, and they all were plausible cuts, and they had to pick which one went. So things like that you just don't really think about, that these people put all sorts of time and effort into. So thank you to everybody who made the set possible. Thank you to Chris Kelly for joining us. Do you have any parting words for us?
I'm excited. We're still reading the forums. I'm sure these spoilers will be posted in the next few days. Give us your feedback. We want it. We're always reviewing it. We want to make sure we have a good product. We want to make sure Worlds is great. Also want to thank you taking time out of your night to do this. I know the community definitely appreciates it, getting these spoilers. So thank you, to you, Chris, and any feedback, post on the forums. We're looking forward to it.
Absolutely, I can't wait to read what people have said in the interim as the episode has been going. There's 2 more questions here. There's one that says we need some more Tusken Raider cards. So just note that one down. And then a little earlier, our marketing advocate Jared had requested some suggestions for cards to be foiled for Worlds and Euros. And he said cards that will not be errataed, please. So obviously there's a ton of cards well, in fairness, that was in response to Joker King saying we'll give you the errata ones first. So that wasn't just out of the blue. But obviously the graphics in this set have been incredible. Do you have any foil suggestions for Jared?
I think that one Clone Trooper would look great. I think a Jedis Fury would look awesome with Luke's lightsaber being green. There's a few other. I don't want to spoil all of graphics is fun, but I can definitely shoot Jared, a message on some of the stuff. I have the advantage and disadvantage of having seen a lot of the graphics work, and it's as always great.
Yeah, we did not get a graphical spoiler for what so far has been my favorite art of the set, and I'm just gonna throw out. I might be breaking Fight Club to say this, but the art that they got for First Light is incredible. Like that ship looks cool as hell. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, that would be a great foil too.
Yeah, true. Especially like if it becomes a splashable standard, then everybody's gonna want a couple. Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap it up there, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your love of the game and for being excited about Set 21. And we will see you in the next episode. Dan will be back next week talking to some of the designers of the clone objectives. So looking forward to that. And may the Force be with you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.